He saw them drop her from the saddle like she was nothing, a bundle in the snow, and they rode away laughing. She was 3 years old, red-haired, green-eyed, and when he dropped to his knees beside her in the dark, she looked up at him and said only 4 words. "Mister, I'm cold." Not screaming, not crying, just 4 words, delivered with the devastating calm of a child who had already learned that screaming brought no one. Cole Hargrove had spent 7 years building a life small enough that nothing could break it again. Rosie Hargrove dismantled all of it in a single heartbeat. This story reminds us that the bravest thing a broken person can do is turn back toward the fire. Not because it's safe, but because someone small is counting on them to. If little Rosie's story stopped your heart the way it stopped mine, hit that drop your city in the comments so we can see how far she travels. Share this with someone who needs to believe in second chances, and subscribe so the next story finds you right on time.
In that one moment, Cole's 7 years of quiet solitude were over. He didn't think, he just rode. His boots hit the snow near the burning wagon, his eyes locked on that small, dark bundle. The fire roared behind him. He knelt down beside her. She was maybe 3, with red hair and big green eyes. She wasn't crying, just watching him. She'd already learned that screaming for help did no good. A little dried blood was on her forehead, and her dress was singed black. Her tiny hands were pressed flat on the snow. She looked right at him. "Mister," she said, her voice clear, "I'm cold." Those simple words cracked something wide open inside Cole's chest. "I know, sweetheart." He checked her for injuries. "I know you are." "What's your name?" he asked. "Rosie." "Rosie," he repeated softly. "My name's Cole. I'm going to pick you up now." She lifted her arms right to him, no hesitation at all. That simple trust from a child with no reason to trust anyone hit him like a punch. He wrapped her in his big coat until just her face was peeking out. He held her close, the orange glow of the fire lighting up the dark. She was quiet, too quiet. He carried her to his horse, then turned to look at the bodies. He had to. The marshal would need details. Her papa was face down. Her mama lay nearby, arms spread wide. Cole had seen enough death to know they were long gone. "Rosie," he said, his voice low. "The folks in the wagon." "Mama and Papa," she whispered into his coat. "Did you see what happened?" "Bad men came," she said like it was an old story. "Papa yelled to run, so I ran." There was a pause. "Then the fire came. Then you came." Cole's jaw was tight. "Your papa told you to run, and you did it all by yourself." "Papa said run," she repeated, like it was the simplest thing in the world. "I hid, then I came back. I was cold." He looked at her small face against his chest. She had done exactly what her father told her, trusting that someone would come. Someone had to. Cole pushed away the thought of his own daughter, who would have been 3 this winter, and turned his horse toward the mountain. The 12 miles to Clearwater Springs was too far for a half-frozen child in the dead of a Wyoming night. His cabin was closer. He rode there fast, with Rosie asleep on his chest. He watched the trees for any sign of those 2 riders. Inside, he built up the fire with one hand, holding her steady with the other. Once the cabin was warm, he sat on the floor and finally took a deep breath. Rosie woke up hungry, which was a good sign. He fed her some soft oatmeal with dried apple. She ate with a quiet focus, like she knew that eating meant surviving. When the bowl was empty, she looked up at him. "More," she said. "More," he agreed, and gave her another bowl. He looked around his one-room cabin. Nothing in it was meant for a little girl. When she finished eating, he said gently, "Rosie, I need to tell you about your mama and papa." She just waited. "They got hurt real bad," he said. "Worse than a doctor can fix. They're gone, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." Rosie just looked at him for a long time. The fire crackled in the quiet. "Okay," she finally whispered. Cole had to stare into the flames for a good while after that. He made her a small bed out of blankets and a crate. As he tucked her in, she asked, "You going to stay?" "Right here in this chair," Cole promised. "If you wake up, I'll be right here." "Okay," she said, and closed her eyes. Cole sat in that chair all night with his rifle on his lap. He knew this wasn't a robbery. It was a targeted kill, which meant those riders knew exactly what they were doing. The question that kept him awake was why? Why leave a witness? Either they didn't see her run, or they left her alive on purpose. Neither choice was good. One was a whole lot worse. At first light, he heard horses coming up the trail. Two of them moving like they knew right where they were headed. Cole was at the window in an instant, rifle in hand. The man out front wore a fancy coat. He sat on his horse like he owned the whole world. The man behind him was hired muscle, plain and simple. "Cole Hargrove," the man in the coat called out. His voice was big and loud. "My name is Silas Dorn. I believe you found something that belongs to me last night." Cole opened the door just a crack, keeping himself behind the frame. "Don't know you, Mr. Dorn, and I ain't found nothing of yours." Silas smiled, but it was a cold, empty thing. "A child," he said. "A little red-haired girl. Her name is Rosie. That man claims to be my cousin's own daughter. I have been looking for her since the fire." He spread his hands, looking generous. "I am her only living relative, Mr. Hargrove. I have the legal right to that child, so please do what is right." From a crate near the fire, Rosie's sleepy voice called out, "Cole?" "Stay put," Cole told her gently. His gaze stayed locked on Silas. "You have no call to make this hard," Silas said. His voice was still warm and patient. But underneath, something was hard as bedrock. He had already figured his chances and did not care how Cole felt. "She belongs with her family. You must understand." "Whose family?" Cole asked. "You said James was a cousin." "Was," Silas said. "A tragedy. You heard awful quick. From Cooper's Ridge to my place is 15 miles. It is just now daylight. You heard 2 people were gone, found the girl, and got here before sunrise." He stopped for a moment. "That is mighty fast, Mr. Dorn." A flicker of something crossed Silas Dorn's face, quick like a card player hiding a bad hand. A traveler brought the news in the night. "It is Mr. Cole Hargrove," Cole corrected. "Just Hargrove." Silas put his smile back on. "Hargrove. I know this must seem strange, but she needs family. You are just one man in the mountains with no right to her. The law is clear. Give her to me. If you have a legal claim," Cole said, "you can tell it to Marshal Calloway in Clearwater Springs. I am taking Rosie there this morning. You can follow us." The smile stayed, but his eyes turned cold as a knife blade. "Marshal Calloway," he said slowly, "might not be the quickest way." "She is the law," Cole stated. "So that is where we are headed." He shifted his thumb on the rifle just enough for the man to see. "That is the only talk we are having, Mr. Dorn. You are welcome to ride on ahead." The man behind Silas reached for his coat. "Do not," Cole said flatly. The man froze solid. Silas stared at Cole for 5 long seconds. Cole saw him weighing his odds. He saw the man decide today was not the day for a fight. The smile came back, bigger and warmer, but more dangerous. "Of course," Silas said. "The law is the right way. I will see you in Clearwater Springs." He turned his horse. "Take good care of her, Hargrove. She is very precious." Then he rode off, his hired man right behind him. Cole watched them disappear into the trees. He stood there a bit longer. She is very precious, not poor little thing, not a single word for the child herself. Precious, the word a man uses for something that has a price. Cole went back inside. Rosie was sitting up, wrapped in her blanket. She was watching the door with big green eyes. She looked from the door to Cole, like a small animal sizing up a threat. "Who was that man?" she asked. Cole knelt down to her level. "Rosie, did that man ever visit your home before?" She thought hard, then came back with an answer. "He came before the snow," she said. "He and Papa talked loud. Papa was mad. Mama cried after the man left, before the snow. That was months ago. Silas Dorn had been to their home. There was a bad argument, and now her parents were gone, and Silas showed up at dawn knowing right where she was. Cole stood and started packing a bag. "We are going to town," he told Rosie. "Okay." She watched him with those serious eyes. "Are you bringing your gun?" "Yes." "Good," she said. Cole looked over at her. 3 years old with dried oatmeal on her chin. Her folks gone less than a day, and she knew a gun was a good thing. A tightness gripped his chest. He settled Rosie inside his coat for the 12-mile ride to Clearwater Springs. He rode that trail like he used to in his old job, watching every shadow. Silas Dorn had ridden south, but that did not mean he stayed south. Rosie slept for the first hour. Cole did not. Clearwater Springs was a town of about 200 folks nestled in a valley. He rode down the main street, feeling all the eyes on them. Curtains twitched. A man at the saloon stopped talking. 2 women on the store steps went quiet. One curtain moved and then stayed still. It was at the dress shop. That was not just curiosity, that was someone watching close. He rode on. Deputy Marshal Ruth Calloway was waiting outside her office. She stood with her arms crossed, looking like she already knew trouble was coming. She was about 45, with iron-gray hair and broad shoulders. She looked at Cole, then at the child in his coat. "Mr. Hargrove," she said. "Deputy Calloway." He got off his horse, holding Rosie. "I found this little girl on Cooper's Ridge last night. There was a burning wagon and 2 bodies. She says her name is Rosie." He watched Ruth's face. "This morning, a man named Silas Dorn came to my cabin. He says he is her closest kin. He wants the child." The name hit home. Cole saw her eyes tighten for just a second. "Silas Dorn," she said. "You know him?" "I have heard of him." Ruth looked down at Rosie. "Hey there, little one. My name is Rosie." "Pretty name." "Rosie, were those your mama and papa on the wagon?" "Yes," Rosie said. Then she added with a calm that chilled him, "They got hurt real bad. Cole told me." Ruth looked at Cole over Rosie's head. Her look was a whole conversation. "Come inside," she said. "Both of you." He told her everything. The fire, the laughing riders, the small child in the snow. It was a clean job. A man shot near the wheel, a woman a few steps away. They weren't robbed. They were targeted. Then Silas Dorn showed up at my cabin before the sun, all smiles with his hired muscle. I told Marshal Calloway what the little girl Rosie had said. Ruth listened hard. She finally looked up and said, "James Whitfield filed a land claim 8 months back up on Cooper's Ridge." She took a breath. "A survey team found silver on that claim 2 weeks ago." I felt a chill. "Silas Dorn has been buying up that whole valley," Ruth went on. "He's got the money and the law in his pocket. If James is gone and left no will, that land passes to his next of kin." I knew what that meant. "The silver goes with it. Every last speck," Ruth said, her jaw tight. "To Silas Dorn, that little girl is a silver mine." Across the room, Rosie was just rolling a small stone in her hands, not hearing a word about her own fate. "She's very precious," I said, repeating Silas's own words. Ruth's eyes turned to steel. "That's what he said, all right. Now you need to talk to a woman named Eliza Weston, runs the dress shop. She knew James and his wife. She might know something that ain't in a file." Ruth leaned forward. "Eliza sees things clear. A curtain twitched in her window when you rode by." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "That's Eliza. She sees it all. Whether she gets involved is another matter." "You go now," she said. "Silas Dorn will be here inside of an hour with a lawyer, and I'll have to hear him out." She met my eyes. "But I'll be wondering why he was at your place before dawn." I stood up and lifted Rosie onto my shoulder. She just molded right against me, trusting. I walked out into that biting cold. The dress shop door opened before I even got to it. A woman stood there, maybe in her mid-30s, with sharp dark eyes that had already sized me and the child up. She had the look of a woman who built her own walls for good reason. "You saw us," I said. "I see everyone," she answered. "It's a small town. Best come inside." I stepped in. She shut the door and her eyes landed on Rosie. For a second, her whole face changed. I saw grief, and I saw a fierce need to protect, all before she smoothed it away. "You're Eliza Weston," I said. "Yes," she replied, her voice softer now. "And that must be Rosie Whitfield." It wasn't a question. "You knew her?" "I met her," Eliza said, moving slow like you would toward a frightened colt. She knelt down to the little girl's level. "I don't know if you recall, sweetheart. Your folks stopped here last fall." Rosie just stared at her dress. "You have red buttons," she said. Eliza blinked, looking down at the 5 small buttons. When she looked back up, her eyes were shining. "Your mama liked those buttons," Rosie said, sure as anything. "She told me they were pretty." Eliza pressed her lips tight, took a slow breath, and stood. The decision was made. She was in this now. "Tell me what happened," she asked. I told her everything, straight and simple. The fire, the bodies, finding Rosie in the snow, and Silas Dorn showing up talking about how precious she was. When I said his name, I saw her jaw clench. "Silver," I said. "On her daddy's land." "Lord have mercy," she whispered. Then she got focused. "James told me Silas visited their homestead, wanting to buy. James said no." Silas just smiled. Her voice was flat. "James said a man who smiles like that when he loses hasn't given up." I looked at this woman, at her hard-won composure and her red buttons, and I knew she understood real danger. "I need you to tell Marshal Calloway every word of that before Silas gets to her." "I'm on my way," she said. "One more thing," I told her, holding Rosie a little closer. "Silas will petition for custody. He's blood kin. Ruth can't legally stop the filing. Only proof he wanted that land before James died can stop him." Eliza's gaze was solid as a rock. "What do you need?" "I need you to help me keep her safe," I said, "while the law figures out if it's going to do its job." Eliza looked at Rosie, who reached out a tiny finger and touched one of those red buttons. "Mama liked them," Rosie repeated, quieter this time. Eliza took that small hand in both of hers, and for a moment she let herself feel it all. Then she squared her shoulders and looked at me. "I close my shop at 4 o'clock, she said. "Bring her here, then." She was already grabbing her coat. "Right now, I am going to see Ruth Calloway." "Eliza," I said, stopping her at the door, "Silas is going to find out you're talking to the marshal. He'll know you've taken a side." She turned and looked me straight in the eye. "James Whitfield sat right here and told me he was worried about that man. I told him he was likely borrowing trouble." She held my gaze. "I have been wrong before, Mr. Hargrove. I will not be wrong about this again." And with that, she was gone. I stood there with Rosie, listening to Eliza's footsteps heading for the marshal's office. Rosie was quiet, turning that little stone over and over. I thought of men laughing as they rode away from a fire. I thought of a perfect smile on a greedy man's face. And I thought of a little girl who waited in the snow, trusting somebody would come. Then the door at the end of the street opened. It was Silas Dorn, but this time with 3 hired guns, and a 4th man in a black suit carrying a lawyer's bag. He hadn't run south. He'd gone to get his army. Rosie was already watching them. Her little fist was clenched tight around that stone. "Cole," she whispered. "I see them," I said. "Are they bad men?" I just watched them ride toward us. He saw the way Silas sat on his horse like he had already won. He watched that pleasant smile that was all fake. "Yes," Cole said. "They are bad men." Rosie's hand tightened on the stone. "Good thing you brought your gun," she whispered. Silas Dorn did not ride to the marshal's office. He stopped in the middle of Main Street, right in front of the dress shop. He looked straight at Cole inside and smiled. It was the same cold, empty smile from the morning. It was a smile that said he knew everything and liked his chances. Then he rode on to the marshals. The lawyer in the black suit went in first. 3 hired men spread out on the boardwalk like dogs guarding a yard. Cole counted them. 3 outside and 2 inside with Silas. It was them against Ruth, who was all alone. He had to move. "Hold on," he told Rosie. She grabbed his collar and he went out the door. He moved fast, but he was not running. Running would tell the hired men too much, too soon. One of them stepped into his path, a wall of wool and blank indifference. The man spoke pleasantly. "The marshal is busy." Cole looked past him. "I am sure she is. Move." Cole's voice was low and carried no heat. "Sir, I found that child on Cooper's Ridge. Her parents were murdered last night. I am the witness, and I am going in that office to give my statement. Now you can move, or you can explain to Marshal Calloway why you stopped me." The hired man took a look at Cole, then at Rosie. He made his choice and stepped aside. The office was small and already thick with bad intentions. Silas stood by the window, studying the street. A lawyer was at Ruth's desk, arranging papers with the air of a man who believed ink was stronger than steel. Ruth stood behind the desk, her arms crossed. She wore the expression of a woman listening hard and filing every word away. Eliza sat in a corner chair, her back ramrod straight. She watched the lawyer the way you would watch a coiled snake. When Cole walked in, something in her face eased, like a window had been opened. Silas turned from the street, a smile spreading on his face. "Mr. Hargrove, good. Saves us sending for you." He gestured to the papers on the desk like he was offering a fine gift. "My attorney has the documents proving I am the child's closest blood relative. It is all very simple." Ruth's voice cut through the air. "Nothing about this is simple. 2 people are dead on Cooper's Ridge. That makes this a murder investigation before it is a custody fight." Silas's tone was warm. "Of course. And I am torn up about James and his wife, just devastated. But the child's well-being cannot wait for an investigation that might take weeks." "She needs family, Marshal," Silas said, looking at Cole. "Not a stranger." Cole spoke flatly. "She does not know you, either." Silas turned his smile on Cole, full of pity. "She is 3 years old. Children can adapt." Cole said, "Then ask her yourself." There was a quiet moment. Silas looked at Rosie. The little girl stared back, her green eyes still and flat. She clutched a stone in her small fist. She did not reach for him. She did not smile. She only pressed herself tighter against Cole's shoulder. It was a clear answer from a child who knew more than she could say. Silas's smile held, but he was the first to look away. The lawyer spoke, his voice smooth. "Marshal Calloway, the law on this is clear. Next of kin has the right of custody. My client can provide for her. Mr. Hargrove is a single man living alone on a mountain with no legal claim at all." "Before we go any further," Eliza said from her corner. Every head turned to her. She did not move, but looked right at Silas Dorn. "In September," she said, her voice level, "James Whitfield and his wife came through town. They stayed for 3 days. James told me that Silas Dorn had come to his place in August. He made an offer to buy his land. James refused." She paused. "James also said that 2 days after Silas left, his fence on the east side was cut. 3 of his cattle went off the ridge. He could not prove a thing, but he knew who did it." The room was dead quiet. "That is a serious accusation," the lawyer said. Eliza's tone was pleasant. "I have not accused anyone of anything. I am providing context. Since the marshal is running a criminal investigation, I figured context would be helpful." Silas watched Eliza, his mind working, running the numbers. "Mrs. Weston," Silas said warmly, "I know you are fond of them. Grief can make a person—" Eliza cut him off. "I am not grieving, I am talking. There is a difference." She looked at Ruth. I will give you a full written statement, everything James told me with dates and all the details. Ruth gave a single sharp nod. The lawyer tried again. Marshal, the custody question is a separate matter. Ruth cut him off. Under territorial law, I can delay a custody decision when it is directly tied to a criminal investigation. And it is tied since the child is the heir to the estate of 2 murder victims. She finally uncrossed her arms and put her hands flat on the desk. Mr. Dorn, where were you 2 nights ago? The smile never left his face. At my ranch. I have men who can prove it. Ruth's voice was dry. I am sure you do. I will be checking. Until then, the child stays with the man who found her, who is also my only witness. The lawyer pointed right at him. That's you, Hargrove. Cole didn't flinch. I know. Ruth Calloway cut in sharp. Murder's irregular, too. Silas Dorn's gaze drifted across the room. He took in Ruth, then Eliza, then Cole holding the little girl with those serious green eyes. A slow, calculating smile spread across his face. Of course, he said, his voice smooth and untroubled. That chilling confidence is what stuck with Cole. The man acted as if he had already won the whole fight. The law must take its course. With that, he and his men walked out, leaving a heavy silence behind them. The air felt cold, like a predator had just left. Rosie let out a long breath against Cole's shoulder. Ruth fell hard into her chair. He'll go straight to the territorial judge in Laramie, she said. He's had Judge Harding in his pocket for 2 years. All I'm doing here is buying time. How much time? Cole asked. 3 weeks, maybe 4. Ruth looked him square in the eye. Hargrove, I need you to listen. A court ain't likely to give a child to a single man. Not when Silas has money and a slick lawyer. It isn't right, but that's how it is. A judge will have questions. She paused. And those questions get easier to answer if you ain't facing them alone. The meaning of her words filled the quiet room. Cole looked over at Eliza. She was staring out the window, deep in thought. One thing at a time, Cole said. What do you need right now? A written statement, Ruth told him, from both of you. Everything. You have mine, Eliza said, her attention snapping back to the room. She turned to Cole. And you and that child need a safer place to stay than some one-room cabin 12 miles up a mountain. She didn't say it with judgment, just fact. Bring her to my place tonight. I have a room, and I'm a harder target than I look. Cole met her gaze. You know what kind of trouble you're inviting. I know exactly what I'm inviting, Eliza said, her voice firm. I made a mistake when her father, James, told me he was worried. I didn't listen then. I am not making that same mistake twice. Rosie, who had been quiet, was now staring at Eliza with great focus. Lady with red buttons, the little girl said. A faint smile touched Eliza's lips. That's me. Mama liked red buttons, Rosie said. Then, after a heavy pause a 3-year-old makes when being brave, she added, I like them too. Cole felt something settle in his chest. Tonight, he told Eliza. She nodded. While they gave their statements, Cole took Rosie outside. Across the street, Silas's 3 hired guns were still there, watching. Cole sat on a bench, and Rosie climbed right into his lap, clutching her small, smooth stone. Cole? She asked. Yeah? Are we going to be okay? He saw the burning wagon in his mind, and Silas Dorn's empty smile. He heard Ruth's warnings about the law. Yeah, he said, his voice rough. We're going to be okay. She considered this. Promise? Cole hadn't made a real promise in 7 years. Not since he broke one and the weight of it never left him. Promises could get a man killed. But he looked down at this little girl who trusted him only because he was there when she needed someone. He remembered her bravery on the mountain. Promise, he said. Rosie squeezed her stone and leaned her head back against his chest. Across the street, the 3 men watched them. The town was quiet. Cole kept his hand on his rifle, holding the little girl who had put all her faith in him. Time passed. Then Rosie whispered, Cole, that man's still watching. I know. The one with the scar on his chin. Cole looked. The scarred man was watching them more closely than the others, like he was waiting for a signal. Good eye, Cole said quietly. Mama said I have good eyes, Rosie replied, still speaking of her in the here and now. Cole didn't correct her. Some things ought to last as long as they can. The marshal's office door opened and Eliza came out. She walked straight for them, ignoring the men across the street. She stopped and gave the scarred man a quick, knowing look. Ruth's riding out to the ridge to document the scene, she said. Silas left 10 minutes ago. His men are still here. I noticed. That one with the scar, Eliza said. He worked for Silas 2 years ago. Left under bad circumstances no one talks about. She said it plainly, with no drama. He's not just here to watch. He's here so you know you're being watched. It's different. Intimidation, Cole said. Eliza nodded, then her eyes softened as she looked at Rosie. You hungry? Yes, Rosie said immediately, trusting this woman completely. Good. Come with me. Eliza held out her hand. Rosie looked at Cole and he gave a slight nod. She took Eliza's hand. The three of them walked down the boardwalk toward the dress shop, the hired men's eyes following them the whole way. Inside, as Eliza heated soup, Rosie found a basket of fabric scraps and started sorting them by color. Eliza looked at Cole. You're thinking about what Ruth said. She stood at the stove with her back to him. I am thinking about a lot of things. The part about me doing this all alone, he said. Cole watched her stir the soup. You have good ears. I pay attention, she said. Ruth was not wrong. A judge will look at a single man with a rifle who lives in a mountain cabin. I know how that will look. Eliza turned around. She leaned on the counter, her arms crossed, her dark eyes steady on him. She looked like a woman who had thought something through and was going to say it plain. I'm not suggesting anything improper, she said. I am suggesting you need someone in your corner who can speak to a judge in a language he understands. I am a respectable widow with a business and roots in this town, and I have a very clear memory of what James Whitfield told me. She held his gaze. And Rosie let me hold her hand. Rosie was trying to put a thimble on each of her fingers. She was focused on the fourth one. Lady with red buttons, she said to herself. A simple statement of fact. Cole looked back at Eliza. One thing at a time, he said. Yes, she agreed. But we do not have all the time in the world. Eat first. Then we figure out the next thing. Outside, the hired man was still on the boardwalk. Evening was coming on. In 3 weeks, maybe 4, a judge in Laramie would decide the future of a little girl who sorted fabric by color and remembered red buttons. A girl who ran when her papa told her to, and waited in the snow because she believed someone would come. Someone had. Cole watched Rosie finally get the fourth thimble on her finger. She held up her hand, satisfied. They ate soup at Eliza's work table with Rosie sitting between them. Nobody spoke of Laramie or judges. Some meals deserved to just be meals. Rosie ate with a quiet focus. When she finished, she looked at Eliza and said, More? It was the same tone she used with Cole. It meant she had made up her mind about Eliza. She would not announce it with words, but with actions, like most 3-year-olds do. Eliza refilled her bowl. Cole saw the way her shoulders softened just a little as she turned to the stove. It was the way a person's body reacts to being trusted when they did not expect it. They stayed until dark. Cole carried a sleeping Rosie to Eliza's house behind the shop. Eliza made a bed from quilts that smelled of cedar. Rosie went to sleep with the stone still clutched in her hand. Cole sat in a chair by the door, his rifle across his knees. He listened as the town grew quiet. Eliza came to the doorway with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to him. They both looked at the sleeping child. She does not cry, Eliza said quietly. I have been watching her. She has not cried one time. I know. That is what worries me. I know that too. Cole held the cup with both hands. She whimpered in her sleep last night, just for a moment. Then she went quiet again. Eliza watched him for a second. "What did you do?" "I put my hand on her back until she was still." Eliza looked at him over her coffee. She was sizing him up, but there was something kinder underneath. "You have only been at this 2 days," she said. "Yeah. You are doing all right." "That is not a high bar," Cole said. 2 days ago, I did not own a blanket soft enough for a child." "Well, you figured it out," she said, pushing off the wall. "Get some rest, Hargrove. I will take the second watch." "You do not have to do that." "I know I do not." She said it with a tone that meant she was tired of explaining herself. "Sleep." He woke at 3 o'clock when she got him, and he watched until the sun came up, cold and gray. Rosie woke up asking for oatmeal and to see the horses. For about 40 minutes, the morning felt almost normal. That feeling ended when Cole walked into the marshal's office. Ruth looked up from her desk with the face of someone holding bad news. "Sit down," Ruth said. "I will hear it standing," Cole replied. Ruth gave him a long look, then spoke. "I rode to Cooper's Ridge last night, got it documented before the snow hit." She paused. "Those were not road agents, Hargrove. Robbers take things. The strongbox was still there. His wife was still wearing her jewelry." Another pause. "And the shots were too good, one each from a distance. This was a hired job." "I know," Cole said. "The territorial office answered this morning." Ruth slid a paper across the desk. "The silver on James Whitfield's claim is a big one. The assessor figures between $80,000 and $120,000. She let that sink in. Silas Dorn has been buying up that whole valley for 3 years. He owns all the land surrounding that claim. He tried to buy out James for 2 years and could not," Cole finished. "Not until James was dead, and his girl was with a guardian Silas chose." Ruth's voice was like stone. "If Silas gets Rosie, he controls her inheritance. That is 15 years of running a silver mine worth over $100,000. She folded her hands. "That is the whole of it." Cole remembered Silas Dorn's patient smile, the look of a man who had already won. "Then you need to bring him in," Cole said. "You have motive. You have Eliza's statement. You have him showing up at my cabin." "I have got circumstance," Ruth said. "I do not have the men who fired the rifles. I do not have proof Silas was anywhere near that ridge. His alibi is 3 ranch hands he pays to lie for him." She looked right at Cole. "I am working on it. I sent a wire to a Pinkerton man in Laramie who knows about Silas." "But that takes time, and the hearing is just 3 weeks out," Cole asked. "So what do I do?" "You stay put. Do not give Silas or his people any reason to come after you." Ruth looked him square in the eye. "One more thing, Hargrove. Judge Harding." She paused. "He has had some money trouble. Silas Dorn helped him out by buying up his debts." Her words hung in the air. "I cannot prove it in court, but I know he is compromised." The silence was heavy. "So the judge is already in Silas's pocket," Cole stated. "I am trying to get a new judge, but that is a slow process." Her face showed she knew the odds were long. "Just give me those 3 weeks. You keep that little girl safe and stay clean." Cole left feeling like the solid ground he was on had just turned to quicksand. Was no way to fix it but to watch his step. Eliza saw the trouble on his face the second he walked in. Once Rosie was busy, she came over. "How bad is it?" she asked softly. "Harding belongs to Silas," Cole answered. Eliza shut her eyes, then opened them, her mind made up. "Then we need evidence so strong even a crooked judge cannot ignore it." Her voice was practical. "What did you learn as a Pinkerton about making a case stick?" "You need a witness they cannot buy or proof they cannot deny." Cole met her gaze. "Silas hired men to do his dirty work. Those men can be found." "Ruth is on it," she said. "Ruth has 3 weeks against a bought judge," he replied, his voice flat with a cold, buried anger. "We cannot just wait for Ruth." Eliza studied him. How long were you a Pinkerton? 8 years? Why did you quit? My wife died in a robbery. I should have stopped, Cole said, his voice empty of feeling. I told my boss it was coming, but he did not act, so I quit working for other men. Eliza absorbed this quietly, something he was coming to appreciate about her. You know how to investigate, she finally stated. And you know men like Silas who pay others to get their hands dirty. I do. Then stop waiting for help and start hunting, she said simply. What do you need, she asked. I need to find out where Silas really was that night, Cole said. Not his alibi. Someone always sees something. A man like him needs to know the job is done right away. He would not just sit at home. His ranch is 15 miles from Cooper's Ridge, Eliza said. He would need a place to get the news, somewhere closer. Cole pieced it together. His man got to my place before dawn. That means someone rode from the ridge to Silas, then Silas rode to my cabin. That is a lot of riding on a winter night. He looked at her. They needed a relay point, a warm place to switch horses. Eliza's expression sharpened, a flicker of an idea in her eyes. The way station on the Laramie Road, she said, 8 miles from town. A man named Fletcher runs it. He serves anyone with good money and sells what he remembers. Her voice was steady. My late husband knew him. What makes him talk? Cole asked. More money than Silas paid him to forget, Eliza replied, already grabbing her coat. We need to go now before Silas pays him more. Rosie will stay with Mrs. Aldridge. You are not going, Cole stated. Eliza paused, her coat half on, and gave him a look that said everything. It is 8 miles down a road Silas is watching, Cole argued. And Fletcher will not talk to a stranger. She finished buttoning her coat. He will talk to me. He knew my husband and what kind of man he was. He trusted him, and he can trust me. She met his gaze. You know how to investigate, Hargrove. I know the people around here. Cole considered her, remembering her steady nerve at the marshal's office. She did not back down from anyone. 1 hour, he agreed. Back before dark. They told Rosie they would be back soon. The little girl looked from one to the other. Bring your gun, she told Cole, then looked at Eliza. And you come back. Then she returned to her fabric basket. Mrs. Aldridge from next door was happy to watch her, offering a cookie immediately. They rode out onto the Laramie Road. Cole watched the trees, rifle ready. Eliza rode beside him, silent for the first mile, which he was thankful for. Then she spoke. My husband was not a bad man, just not a very good one. Cole listened. He made deals with the wrong kind of people and borrowed money he could not pay back. When he died, it took me 8 months to settle his debts. She stared ahead. I paid everyone. I did it to keep my place in this town, because this town is mine. She paused. That is how I know Fletcher, and that is why he will talk to a Weston. Cole was silent. I did not ask, he finally said. I know, she replied. But you need to hear it from me before you hear his version of the story. She looked down the road. My husband was not the reason I stayed in Clearwater Springs. I stayed because of what I built, my shop, my good name, my life. They belong to me. I understand, Cole said. She gave him a surprised look that softened quickly, like she was adjusting her opinion of him. Most men do not, she said. Most men have not spent 7 years building something on their own they did not want to lose, Cole answered. They watched the road in silence for a time. Fletcher's way station was a low building that smelled of horses, wood smoke, and people in a hurry. Fletcher himself was a small man in his 60s. His eyes showed he had seen enough of the world to stop judging it. He looked at Eliza, then at Cole, and then at the rifle. He did the quick math of a man in his line of work. Information given freely is worth more than information taken by force. Mrs. Weston, he said, it has been a while. It has, Eliza said. She sat at a table near the stove like she had been there before, her hands folded. She looked at Fletcher with her steady gaze. I need to know if anyone passed through here 2 nights ago, after midnight. Fletcher's face did not move a muscle. That is a mighty specific question. It is, Eliza confirmed. Information like that, Fletcher said, can bring trouble to the one who gives it. The trouble is already here, Eliza told him. A man and a woman are dead up on Cooper's Ridge. Their daughter is 3 years old. The man behind it is now trying to get his hands on that little girl. And the judge who will decide it owes that same man money. The trouble, Mr. Fletcher, is already at our door. We are just trying to fix it. Fletcher looked at Cole. Pinkerton? Former, Cole said. Former, as in, you know the job but do not answer to a boss who might bury the truth. That is about right, Cole said. Fletcher considered him for another moment. He then reached under his counter for a tin cup, poured some coffee, and set it down in front of Eliza. It was a gesture that made a decision. 2 riders, he said. I knew one of them. He works for a man named Dorn, out of Laramie. They came through around 2 in the morning for fresh horses. Did not stay long. He looked down at his own hands. A 3rd man came by himself about 30 minutes later. Did not switch horses. He just spoke privately with the 1st man. Tell me about the 3rd man, Cole said. He was dressed well for the weather and the hour, Fletcher said. An expensive coat. Carried himself like a man who gives orders and expects them to be followed. He paused. He smiled quite a bit for a man traveling alone at 2 in the morning. A chill went through Cole that had nothing to do with the weather. Did he stay long? 20 minutes, Fletcher said. Headed south toward Laramie. Write it down, Eliza said. It was not a request. What you saw, the time, who it was, and sign it. It was. And Fletcher stared at her for a long time. That is a heavy thing you are asking. I know what I am asking, Eliza replied. If Dorn finds out, if he gets that child, she said softly, then all that silver will pay for whatever he decides to do next. And men like Silas Dorn always have a next move. She held his gaze. You have been here a long time, Mr. Fletcher. You know what it looks like when one man gets too much power because no one stood up to him early on. Fletcher was silent. The fire crackled in the stove. Outside, the wind howled through the hills, a sound that meant a cold spell was coming. Then Fletcher took out some paper and a pen. He wrote for 3 minutes without a word, signed the paper, folded it, and gave it to Eliza. I did not give you that, he said. No, you did not, Eliza agreed. They rode back into town with the statement safe in her coat as the north wind blew harder. When they passed the marshal's office, Cole saw through the window that Ruth was not by herself. A man in a fine suit was sitting across from her desk. Ruth had the look of a woman holding a wolf by the ears, and Eliza saw it clear. That's not his lawyer, she said quietly. That man is from the territorial office. How can you tell? Cole asked. Silas's man walks like he expects the world to move for him, Eliza explained. That fella is waiting to be told what to do. She looked straight at Cole. Silas has called in the government. He's moving faster than we thought, Cole said. In less than 2 minutes, they were through the marshal's office door. Ruth looked up, her face showing a woman who'd just been handed a big problem and its only solution at the same exact time. Eliza set the paper on the desk. A signed statement, she announced. It puts Silas Dorn on the Laramie Road at 2 in the morning, the same night of the murders. She looked right at the man from the territory. He was talking to one of his own men who had just come directly from Cooper's Ridge. I expect a judge would want to know that. The room went still. Ruth read the paper and a new strength settled in her shoulders. Your name? The man finally asked. Eliza May Weston, she answered. I'll ride to Laramie and say everything I know in front of any judge. That includes what I know about Judge Harding's personal debts. The man went stiff. You didn't think I knew, Eliza said, simply stating a fact. Mrs. Weston, Ruth said, her voice now steady. Perhaps you and Mr. Hargrove should go check on Rosie while I finish this talk. Once outside, the wind howled. You had that ready, didn't you? Cole said. The part about Harding. I've known about his situation for 6 months, Eliza said. I was just waiting for the right moment to bring it up. She started toward her shop. Information is only useful if you use it at the right time. Cole kept pace with her. Who are you? He asked, not with suspicion, but with real wonder. A woman who pays attention, she said. And I am extremely tired of men like Silas Dorn assuming that means nothing. Through the shop window, Cole saw the warm light inside, with little Rosie busy at a table with Mrs. Aldridge and a plate of molasses cookies. Eliza, Cole said, and she stopped. Thank you, he said, for all of it. She looked at him for a long moment. Don't thank me yet, she told him. Silas is still out there, and we still have 3 weeks and a judge we are not sure of. She turned toward the shop door. But we are not as alone as we were this morning. She went inside. Cole stood in the cold, watching through the window. He saw Rosie look up and show Eliza whatever she had been making from cookie pieces and fabric scraps. Eliza sat right down and looked at it with all the seriousness a child's creation deserves. 3 weeks to Laramie. A nervous judge who now knew his secret was out. A signed paper that put Silas Dorn where he should not have been. And a woman who paid attention, who used information correctly, and who had red buttons a little girl would remember. Cole stepped inside, but the 3 weeks leading to Laramie were anything but peaceful. Silas Dorn stayed away from Clearwater Springs, but his influence was felt everywhere, like a bitter north wind. You saw it in the way good men suddenly couldn't meet Cole's gaze at the store. You saw it in the scarred man who kept appearing at the end of Main Street, too regular to be a coincidence. Fletcher even sent a message saying 2 fellas had been asking about him. He told them nothing. Ruth moved quietly, gathering information. Her contact in Laramie confirmed 2 of Silas's men were gone when the murders happened, and came back with new horses and no good reason. It wasn't enough to arrest him, but it was another piece of the puzzle. Then some good news. The territorial man who'd been in Ruth's office went back to Laramie, and the custody hearing was moved. The new judge was a woman, Abigail Crane, known for being tougher than a $2 steak and owned by no one. A female judge, Cole had said, surprised. That's right, Ruth confirmed. Silas's lawyer is raising Cain, but it's not doing him any good. Someone with power had decided this whole business with a murdered family, and a crooked local judge needed a fresh pair of eyes. Like Eliza said, information used the right way works wonders. Meanwhile, Eliza kept Rosie at her shop, letting folks think she was just being charitable. It was a simple story that kept people from asking complicated questions. Rosie spent her days sorting fabric, especially the red pieces, which she'd tuck in her pocket next to a smooth stone. When Eliza asked her why, Rosie just said, "For keeping," as if that explained everything. Cole saw it all. He watched Eliza teach Rosie to thread a needle, her patience as endless as the prairie sky. She'd let the little girl try a dozen times, offering the same gentle encouragement each time. He saw the look on Rosie's face when she finally got it right, a mix of pure pride and a quick glance to make sure Eliza saw it too. He realized the cabin up the mountain no longer felt like home. It was just a place he had been for a spell. For the first time in 7 years, Cole felt the heavy weight on his shoulders shift, shared by someone else. He didn't think on it too much, just one step at a time. Then, on the 14th day, Silas Dorn rode back into Clearwater Springs. He was alone, and that worried Cole more than anything. A man like Silas coming without his cronies meant he had a new, more dangerous plan. Cole saw him from Eliza's window, looking like he owned the whole town. The moment Silas tied his horse up, Cole moved, putting himself between Rosie and the door. It was a habit he had formed over the past 2 weeks, a silent promise to keep her safe. The door opened and in walked Silas, smiling that snake oil smile. The room went quiet, everyone knowing exactly what was at stake. "Mr. Hargrove," he started. "Mrs. Weston." His eyes landed on Rosie, sizing her up. "My, she favors her mother." Rosie just stared, her arms locked around Eliza's neck, a small stone tight in her fist. She watched him the way a cautious animal watches a predator. "What do you want, Dorn?" Cole said, his voice hard. "Just what's best for the child," Silas replied smoothly. "Heard about the new judge. Made me think we could settle this without all the trouble." "Spit it out," Eliza said. Silas aimed his smile at her. "A good family in Cheyenne, a doctor and his wife, want to adopt Rosie. They can give her everything." He paused for effect. "I'll drop my claim and support it. Judge Crane would approve. I just need the land claim transferred to cover her expenses." Cole heard the real deal under the fancy words. Silas was trading Rosie for the land he'd wanted from the start. He figured the girl was too much trouble, but the land was the real prize. "No," Cole said, his voice flat. Silas's smile held. "The answer is no," Cole repeated, just as calm. "She has everything she needs right here," Eliza said, her voice quiet but firm. "She has people who chose her." "She's not a transaction, Mr. Dorn, and her daddy's land is not a bargaining chip." Eliza looked him square in the eye. "You're here because the new judge scares you. You can't buy her." A cold flicker in Silas's eyes gave him away before the smile covered it up. "Mrs. Weston," he said softly, "you're in deep." "I know," she said. His smile turned thin and ugly. "Laramie, then." And he left. Rosie tightened her hold on Eliza. "He's going to make a move before the hearing," Cole stated. "Yes," Eliza agreed, rubbing the little girl's back. "He came to test us and offer a deal. Now that we've refused, we need to get somewhere he can't predict." "Laramie," Cole said. "We'll leave a week early. Ruth can find us a safe place." Eliza knelt in front of Rosie. "You okay?" The little girl considered it. "That man smells wrong," she declared. "He smells like a lie." She opened her fist, looking at the stone in her palm. "Papa said when something smells wrong, you walk the other way." Eliza looked up at Cole, her eyes fierce. "Your papa was a smart man," she told Rosie. 7 days before the hearing, the three of them rode for Laramie, with Ruth following a half-day behind. They reached the capital without trouble. Silas Dorn, it turned out, hadn't figured they would move early. Ruth had a room waiting at a boarding house run by a Mrs. Holt, who knew Ruth for a decade and asked no questions, just brought a cot for the child. That week was the longest Cole could recall, a tight, held-breath wait for something that mattered. They reviewed their testimony with Ruth each morning in Mrs. Holt's kitchen, while Rosie ate breakfast. Cole had done this 100 times as a Pinkerton, but he'd never seen anyone like Eliza. She valued the truth for its own sake. She kept a steady, quiet connection with Rosie, even while talking with the adults. She was the woman who had told Silas Dorn that a child was not a transaction. One night, after Rosie was asleep, they sat together at the kitchen table. The silence between them was no longer empty, but a comfortable space they had earned. "So what's next?" Eliza asked, her hands wrapped tight around her cup. "Depends on the judge," Cole answered. "Let's say it goes our way. What then?" He thought of the cabin, of Ruth's warnings, and of Eliza. He pictured her standing firm in the marshal's office, and then at his stove, making soup for a little girl she barely knew. He remembered her handing over that crucial statement, calm as could be. "I've been thinking on it," he said. "Me too," she admitted. "I need to say something plain. I care for that child. Ever since she pointed out my buttons. And what happens to her is you. So I care what happens to you." She looked him square in the eye. "This ain't about romance or convenience. What we've built these past 3 weeks is real. I can be a witness who just goes home. Or I can be something more in her life. In your life. If that's something you can honestly think on." Cole looked at her. This steady woman with her dark eyes and red buttons. He recalled her standing up to a man that spooked the whole county. He thought of his small, quiet life, and how this woman and child were breaking it wide open. "That's something I can honestly think on," he finally said. Eliza gave a single, satisfied nod. Good. We'll talk after Laramie, one thing at a time. The hearing was on a Thursday in a courtroom that smelled of pine and old paper. Judge Abigail Crane, a small woman with sharp gray eyes, took it all in. She had a look that said she'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't buying any of 'em. She looked at Cole, at Eliza, and at Ruth. Then her eyes landed on Rosie, who sat there holding her little stone. And the judge's hard expression seemed to pause and pay proper attention. Silas's lawyer went first, smooth as a snake oil salesman. He talked of bloodlines, money, and how a single man's cabin was no place for a child. Then Ruth stood up. She laid out Fletcher's confession, her report on Silas showing up before dawn, and a timeline that put his men right near the murders. She topped it off with the survey showing a silver deposit on the land Silas wanted so bad. Then Eliza took her turn. She told the court everything James Whitfield had said to her 4 months prior, speaking the plain and simple truth. Cole watched the judge's eyes, and he saw a conclusion being drawn. The judge looked right at Cole. "Mr. Hargrove, tell me why you should keep this child." Cole had a speech all planned out, but the words that came out were different. They were the truth. "She reached for me in the snow 'cause she needed someone, and I was there," he said. "I've been there every day since. I ain't got much to offer except to always show up and put her first. In her sleep, she called me Papa before she ever knew my name. I'm just trying to earn that." The courtroom was dead silent. Then Rosie looked up at the judge and said clear as a bell, "He stays." Judge Crane raised a hand to silence Silas's lawyer. "Mr. Dorn," she said, her voice like chipping ice, "I have a signed statement placing you near the murders. I have records of you buying up all the land around that claim. I am referring this whole mess to the prosecutor's office." For the first time, Silas's smile was gone. He looked like a man who'd run the numbers his whole life and just watched them all add up wrong. "As for the custody of Rosie Whitfield," Judge Crane continued. She looked from Cole to Eliza, then to the little girl between them. The child clutched her stone, her green eyes sizing up the room. The judge made her ruling clear. "I am giving temporary guardianship to Cole Hargrove. A final decision will be made after the criminal case is resolved. The court takes a child's household seriously. I expect to see that you have thoughtfully addressed this matter." Cole felt Eliza's hand squeeze his arm for just a moment. Silas Dorn got up. His lawyer gathered his papers. Silas stared at Cole, already plotting his next move. Men like him do not quit. They just find a new way to fight. Cole knew this well. But Rosie had climbed into his lap. She sat with her back to his chest, safe and sound. She felt secure knowing the people she trusted had come through for her. That was all that mattered. Everything else was just noise. "Cole," she whispered. "Yeah. Can we please go home now?" Cole met Eliza's steady gaze. Her face was calm, but underneath he saw something real and warm. She was patient about the things that truly counted. "Yes, sweetheart," Cole said. "We can go home." But home was a different kind of word now. It took them 2 days to get back to Clearwater Springs. The whole town watched them ride in, waiting to see what would happen next. Mrs. Aldridge nodded at Cole, a clear sign she had changed her mind about him. Men who once avoided his gaze now looked him in the eye. A town had made its decision. Silas Dorn's hired man, the one with the scar, was nowhere to be seen. He had vanished the morning they all left for Laramie. Ruth mentioned this, and her silence on the matter spoke volumes. Eliza reopened her shop the next day. Cole brought Rosie by around noon, just like before. Rosie went right for the fabric basket to sort her colors, picking up her important work. Eliza put on coffee, acting like everything was normal, because making things feel normal was the whole point. Judge Crane sent her notes to the prosecutor yesterday, Ruth told Cole later. "The man's name is Aldous Webb. He is honest, and I cannot find any ties to Silas Dorn." She added, "One of the men missing from Silas's crew showed up in Cheyenne. He was trying to sell a horse that belonged to James Whitfield. Webb has him now. Cole took that in. He will talk. Webb thinks so. A man who sells a murdered man's horse nearby is not a smart planner." Things are moving. Ruth looked straight at Cole. Silas knows it too. That makes him either more dangerous or completely finished, and I cannot tell which it is yet. Both, Cole replied. A man like that is always dangerous. Being finished just changes what he is dangerous about. Ruth nodded. Keep a sharp eye out. He did. He kept his eyes open in the days that followed. They settled into a quiet rhythm. Mornings at the boarding house where they were staying. Afternoons in Eliza's shop. Evenings together at her kitchen table. Rosie would sit between them, telling them about her day. Cole and Eliza talked about everything that was still unsettled. And that was almost everything. One Thursday, 2 weeks later, Rosie fell asleep on the couch, tired out from a long day. Cole and Eliza sat at the table in the quiet that followed. The time for patience had passed. I have been thinking about what you said, Cole started. Before the hearing, about what comes next. I remember, Eliza said. She held her coffee cup carefully. I also remember saying we should take it one thing at a time. Laramie is over, Cole said. That is one thing. Silas's man is in jail. That is another. And Rosie has a guardian. He looked right at her. I am fresh out of reasons to keep taking things one at a time. Eliza stared into her cup, then back at him. Her eyes were as direct as always, but held something new, something that was done with waiting. What are you asking me, Hargrove? I am asking if you still mean what you said, Cole answered, about something real and permanent, about being a part of Rosie's life and a part of mine. He took a breath. I am asking because the judge expects me to have a thoughtful home for Rosie. I want to give her one. But I am not asking because of the judge. Then why are you asking? Because you rode out to Fletcher's with me when there was no reason to, Cole said. Because you spoke up in Ruth's office and said what was right. Because you held my daughter's hand and made her feel safe. He looked at her. And because Rosie woke up scared 2 nights ago and called for you before she called for me. Instead of being hurt, it was the most relief I have felt in 7 years. Eliza was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled in the stove. Outside, the January wind howled around the small house. I am not an easy woman to be with, Eliza finally said. I have my own way of doing things, and I am usually right. This town means the world to me. I do not just pick up and leave. I am a woman who stays where she has built something. You need to understand that. I understand, Cole said. I spent 7 years up in those mountains for the same reason. I was building something too, even if it was just myself back into one piece. Are you? Eliza asked. Not broken anymore? Cole considered it. I do not know if that is the right way to put it. I think I am just shaped differently now. What happened will always be a part of me. But it is not the only thing anymore. He paused. Rosie helped with that. And you did the rest. Eliza watched him, her dark eyes seeing everything. Then her face softened into something simple and true. I want to say yes, she said. But I need to say something first. It is not a condition, just a fact. Say it. I loved my husband, Eliza said softly. But he was a man who needed fixing, and I could not fix him. That kind of love costs you something. I paid that price for 8 years, and I will not pay it again. She met Cole's gaze. I am not looking to save a man or be saved by one. I am looking for a partner. Someone to stand beside me. Equal. She stopped. That is what I am offering. It is everything I have to give. That is what I want, Cole said. I do not need to be rescued. I need someone who will tell me when I am wrong. Someone who sees a 3-year-old girl and knows she is a person who deserves respect. He looked at her. You do all of those things. Eliza put down her cup. Then yes, she said. Yes to the permanent thing, to the real thing. Cole and Eliza were married on the first Saturday in February. The whole town turned out to watch. Reverend Goss shook Cole's hand and told him he was glad to see things come out right. Ruth Calloway stood as Cole's witness, her handshake as solid as her word. Mrs. Aldridge cried happy tears in the front pew, and Rosie stood between them in a new dark green dress Eliza had made just for her. It had 5 small red buttons right down the front. They were a family, real and true, and that was all that mattered. Rosie stood between Cole and Eliza, holding both their hands. When the Reverend said the final words, she looked up at Eliza and said, "Mama?" Not a question, just a fact. Eliza's composure broke, and she swept the little girl into a hug. Cole placed his hand on their backs as they became a family. The following weeks were filled with small moments of building a life. Eliza moved in while their new house was prepared. It had a yard with a fence, which Rosie insisted must be painted red. So Cole painted it red one afternoon, with Rosie supervising every brushstroke from a fence post. Eliza watched from her doorway, her face a mix of things she didn't bother to hide. "She sure has strong feelings about that fence," Cole said, watching Rosie boss him around. "She has strong feelings about most everything," Eliza answered with a small smile. Cole looked at the little girl, so full of fire, and thought of her father on that ridge. He had told his daughter to run, believing someone good would find her. "She gets it from her father," Cole said quietly. "He raised a daughter who knew how to be strong in the dark." Eliza was silent a moment. "You ought to tell her that someday," she said, "that her father was a brave man, that he saved her." "I will," Cole promised. "She deserves to know." In March, word came from the prosecutor's office. The fella they caught in Cheyenne with James Whitfield's horse had decided to talk. He sang like a canary, giving them the second man's name and all the details. He described the man who hired them, a description that fit Silas Dorn perfectly. It seemed protecting Silas wasn't worth the trouble anymore. They arrested Silas at his ranch in April. He came out onto his porch trying to keep up that powerful smile, but it faltered. A deputy said later it looked small and old, the look of a man who'd finally run out of tricks. Cole read Ruth's letter at the kitchen table, Rosie on his lap, munching on an apple. He read it twice, then just stared out the window. "What is it?" Eliza asked, watching him. "It's over," Cole said, his voice low. "They got him." She came over and put her hand on his shoulder, a silent comfort. He covered her hand with his own. They stood that way for a long moment until Rosie held up her apple core. "Done," she announced. Then she looked up at them with those green eyes and asked, "Is it good news?" "Yes," Cole said, his heart feeling lighter than it had in years. "It's very good news." In May, the official papers arrived. Permanent guardianship of Rosie Whitfield was granted to Cole and Eliza Hargrove. Cole held the document, reading their names and Rosie's name over and over until the words felt as solid and real as the ground beneath his feet. "We ought to ask her someday," Eliza said softly. "When she is old enough to choose," Cole agreed. They did not have to wait long. That evening, Rosie was sorting her rock collection on the floor. Out of the blue, she asked, "Can my name be Rosie Hargrove?" Cole and Eliza just looked at each other. "Why that name, honey?" Eliza asked. Rosie thought for a moment. "Because that is who I am now," she stated simply. "Rosie Hargrove, Papa and Mama Hargrove. That is just how names work." That feeling got Cole in the throat again. He had to turn and look out at the golden evening light on the floor. "That is exactly how names work," Eliza said. Her voice was steady, which took some doing. Rosie, content, returned to her stones. On the first Saturday in June, Cole rode up to the cabin on Cooper's Ridge. He went alone. He told Eliza he had to get some things and needed to do it by himself. She understood without asking why. The cabin was cold and still, just as he had left it. He gathered what he came for, a few tools and an old photograph of his wife from a tin box. He stood there holding it for a long while. She had been 26 and had loved him with a simple heart. before life got complicated. She surely deserved better than what she got. Some truths are set in stone. Living life does not change them, but you have to live it anyway. He tucked the old photograph into his coat pocket, keeping it close with the things that mattered. He walked out of the cabin, shutting the door on the past, and rode down the mountain toward Clearwater Springs. He did not look back. Eliza was waiting on the porch, a coffee cup in her hand. She was watching Rosie try to teach the neighbor's cat how to sit. The cat was not having it, but Rosie was not the type to take no for an answer. Eliza read his face the moment he swung down from the horse. She did not say a word. She just handed him the warm cup. And that was all he needed. He felt the grief that had been unsettled since December finally find its place. It was not gone. It just moved to a back room where it did not run the whole house. He had not erased his loss. He had just accepted what he had found. A little girl who held her arms up in the snow, believing someone would come. A woman who rode out in a winter storm because she refused to be wrong a second time. And a town that had watched it all and had the good sense to adjust. His life, meant to be small and quiet, had been made bigger by a stubborn 3-year-old. "Cole," Rosie called out, not even looking up from the cat. "He is not listening to me." Cole called back. "Cats do not listen much." "Well, he should learn," Rosie said matter of fact. She then told the cat with all the authority of a tiny queen, "You should learn to listen." The cat just stared back with pure indifference. Rosie stared right back with pure certainty. Beside Cole, Eliza made a sound like a soft, warm laugh. In the evening light, he watched his daughter. She had red hair, green eyes, and a strong will about cats and everything else. She was the daughter of a man who told her to run for her life, and of a woman who died loving her, and of a cowboy who turned around on a mountain because his horse knew better. Cole understood then that what happened on Cooper's Ridge was more than a tragedy. It was a father's last and greatest gift, the command to keep going. And she had done it just right. And someone had come for her. Some losses never heal. You just learn to carry them differently. Some winters are long enough to change you, but spring always comes, not to undo the damage, but to show you what was strong enough to survive. "I am not giving up on you," Rosie told the cat, looking it right in its unimpressed eyes. After a long moment, the little animal sat down. Rosie turned to Cole and Eliza, her face lit with the pride of someone who had just proven a basic law of the universe. "See?" she said simply. Cole looked over at Eliza. Eliza looked back at him, and the evening settled around the three of them like a warm blanket. It was perfectly ordinary, and it was all theirs. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.